This is Vaishali Siddhappa and welcome to my channel, which is Complemental Economics, and today's class it's about debt, Ricardian Equivalence. The question comes like, write a short note on the Ricardian Equivalence. This is the question for 4 mark. Let's talk about how exactly the Ricardian Equivalence starts with. Budgetary deficit must be financed by either taxation, so otherwise by borrowing money, otherwise printing the money. So you can fulfill the budgetary deficit, whatever deficit or shortage of money you have, you can fulfill by taking more and more taxes. Otherwise you have to borrow. The borrow is nothing but a debt. So on the other side you can print lot of money. Government have mostly relied on the debt side, borrowing side, giving rise to what is called as a government debt. Sometimes we call it as just debt, otherwise you can call it as a government debt because government is borrowing, so we can call it as a government debt. The concepts of deficit and debt are closely related. If you ask me how, deficits can be taught as flow and debt can be considered as a stock. So in this way, if the government continues to borrow year after year, it leads to the accumulation of the debt. Continuously borrowing and borrowing, it leads to accumulated. The loan debt will be accumulated. So in this case, the government has to pay more and more by way of interest. I'm going to pay interest and interest again and again. These interest payments themselves contribute to debt. This is called as a vicious circle. In a few of the last couple of videos before, I have discussed about one of the concept debt. In that I told you vicious circle. So that means I have already borrowed money. So for that again borrowing year after year I'm borrowing. So because of that, accumulation of debt is increasing. Accumulation is happening when it comes to debt. Because of that, interest rate is I'm paying a lot of interest. Interest rate is also increasing. The paying interest and again continuation of interest which is increasing, finally it becomes debt only. Interest payments themselves contribute to debt more. On the other side, there are two interlinked aspects of this issue when I talk about the debt. One is whether government debt is burden or not. Whether can I consider this as a burden? First of all, I can say that yes, it is a burden. On the other side, I have one more question. Government debt is a burden. Otherwise, another issue comes like, from where I'm going to finance for this debt? So from where I'm going to get the finance to whatever the deficit problem I have, to connect that where I'm going to get the debt. In this case, the burden of debt must be discussed keeping in mind that what is true for the small traders debt may not be true with the government debt. What is true for the individual may not be true for a whole. That is the conclusion of it. And one must deal with the whole differently and from the part. Unlike any other trader, the government can raise resources through taxation, printing money. So sometimes what happens is what is true for an individual may not be true for everybody. So that is what we are trying to convey here. For individual, how he deals with his debt, the same way he cannot deal with the whole country. By borrowing, the government transfers the burden, reduced consumption. When we are going to borrow more and more borrowings, that is going to be reduced. Consumption is going to reduce for the future generation. This is because it borrows by issuing the bonds. They borrow whenever they are going to borrow any money, they are going to issue a bonds to the people living at present. May decide to pay off the bonds after 20 years by raising the taxes. Through the taxes they are going to pay after 20 years. So 20 years after, who is going to pay this? So definitely that time these may be lived on the young population. The people who are young after 20 years, definitely we won't be working. The new population, the new generation will come. So they are the one who is going to pay this. Because of that, the people who entered just workforce, whose disposable income is going to come down. Their disposable income is going to come down and hence consumption is also going to decrease. That means we have to consider as national saving, it was argued, would fall. national saving is also going to come down. Government borrowing from the people reduces the savings to the private sector also. If I'm continuously saving, I mean I'm spending all money, so that means I'm not saving. If I'm not saving, how I'm going to contribute to the private sector investment? It is not possible. If I'm not able to participate in the private sector investment, that means capital formation will be less. At the same time, the growth of the country is also going to decrease. So this way, so the burden on the future generation, it is going to increase, because they'll not get the private sector investment, then for capital formation will be less, the growth of the economy, it will also be less. And when it comes to traditionally, if we talk about, it has been argued that when government cuts the taxes, the government, whenever they're going to cut the taxes and runs budget deficit, they're going to cut the taxes, because of that they're going to run with the budget deficit. Consumers respond to their after tax income by spending more. What will I do is, I have 100 rupees, in that tax what they're going to reduce, that will be less. Because of that, my expenditure, my spending is going to increase. It is possible that those people are short-sighted. I mean, like, I don't want to save much. I don't want to think about what is going to happen in the future, and do not want to understand the implications of the budget deficit also. They may not realize that at some point they will, some point of time they'll realize, some point of time they're not going to realize. The government will have to raise the taxes to pay off the debt and accumulated interest rate. Even if they comprehend this, they may expect the future taxes to fall not on them but on the future generation. See, if I am borrowing money, so I am the one who is responsible for it. I should not transfer that burden on the future generation. Right now I'm not saving, I'm spending all my income, and because of that the interest rate, everything will be increased. Because of that reason, if the government is not having money, so in a future generation, definitely for the future, they're going to impose lot of taxes. Because of that, definitely future generation is going to face a lot of problem, but we don't want that also. The counter argument says is that consumers are forward looking. So we always said, like, no, they doesn't think at all for the future, but it is not true always. The counter argument says, for the previous slide of mine, the consumers are forward looking. They always think about the future and will base their spending not only on their current income but also on their expected future income also. So they will understand that borrowing today means higher taxes in the future. So today, if they are going to borrow, in the future generation they are going to pay more and more taxes. Further, the consumer will be concerned about the future generation, because who is the future generation? My own children, my own grandchildren. Presently they are living with me, they know me, that's my family. If I am going to borrow a lot of money today, ultimately my children and grandchildren, they are the one who is going to struggle in the future. So that definitely play a very important role when it comes to I'm going to make any kind of a decision making unit. So in this way, they would increase the saving now. So now what people will do is they're going to increase the saving. When they're going to increase saving now, the fully offset increased government is saving. That means if individual is going to increase, government cannot save. So if government is not able to save, in that case also national saving is not going to change. See, if individual is not saving, government will save. If individual is saving, government will not save. One or the other way, the saving remains the same. It is not going to change. So in this case, this is the view of Ricardian equivalence. So this is from the Ricardian equivalence. After the 19th century, one of the economists, who is David Ricardo, so he came with this particular view. He is the first one argued that in the face of high deficits, people save more. In this situation, when high deficits are there, people are going to save more and more money because they think that in future we're going to face a problem. So this way the topic came like equivalence, because it argues that taxation and borrowing, they both will be equal to each other. If I am borrowing, the taxation will be equal to that. So in that case, and equivalence means financing expenditure when the government increases spending by borrowing today, which will be repaid by the taxes in the future. It will have the same impact on the economy as an increase in a government expenditure that is financed by a tax increase today. In that, the conclusion what they are trying to say is, in Ricardian equivalence, see, today I am borrowing, today I am paying. So that means saving will be less. Today saving will be less. So future generation, they will be good. And another case, today I am not paying anything. So today I am living very happy. I am making money. I am minting money. Future generation will be not happy. One or the other, it is the same situation. It is not going to change. If you are paying more taxes today, if you are going to pay taxes more in the future, the situation, it stays same. The finance stays in the same situation. In this way, it has often been argued that debt does not matter, because if owed to ourselves, the money, if transfers within the country, the resources, money, if it is going to be transferred within the country, the purchasing power of the country stays within the country, so it is okay with. So because ultimately the resources, money, everything stays within the country, so no interruption of any other country, so any other organization is not going to interfere. On the other case, if you are going to borrow money from other countries, any other institutions, international institutions, any from other country, that means abroad, any international organization, institutions, otherwise any individuals of other country. If you are going to borrow from other country, so definitely your money will be transferred to some other country which is not favorable. In that case, we say it is a burden, otherwise it is not a burden. If say the borrowing, giving debt, if stays within the country, we don't consider that as a much burden, but it is, if it is from other countries, other institutions, any other individuals, from any other organization out of the country, if you are going to borrow, so then it will be called as a burden, because we have to pay interest for that when we are going to send lot of goods to them, so it is going to move out of the country, so it doesn't stay within the country. So for that case, that can be considered as a burden. So this is called Ricardian equivalence. So thank you so much. Again, this is one of the 4-mark question. Now all the questions from this particular chapter, the government budget and the income, it is completed. So thank you so much. If you really like my videos, please subscribe and share. Thank you so much.